Good morning. Today we're going to go over some adding and subtracting fraction review. Now, we know that you've done a lot of this in elementary school, but we had a big summer that we could have forgotten everything. So we just want to make sure that we dust off all those cobwebs and make sure that we hit the ground running with your fractions. So, when adding and subtracting fractions, you must have a common denominator. So remember that your numerator is the top and the denominator is the bottom. So for the steps, we're going to look at the denominators and ask ourselves, are they the same? So if yes, you're going to add or subtract the numerators and keep the denominator the same, and then simplify. So looking at number 1, we have a 7 and a 7. So we know that the denominators are the same. So we can just go ahead and add the numerators. So 3 plus 5 gives us 8, and then we keep the 7 the same. Now, this is a completely simplified fraction. It's an improper fraction, but it is completely simplified. So you do have permission to leave it that way. The other thing you can do if you want to is think about how many times 7 goes into 8, which is 1, and we have a remainder of 1. Both answers are equally correct. Both answers would give you full points on a quiz, on a test, on a homework. Those are exactly the same value. If you are going to turn it into a mixed number, make sure that it is actually equal to the improper fraction that you said it was in the first place. Okay, let's take a look at number 2. So we've got a 3 and we have a 15. Those are not the same, so we're going to need to make them the same. So it says to find a common denominator by multiplying each fraction by a value of 1. Now, 1 can look really different. It can be 1 over 1, it can be 2 over 2, it can be 3 over 3, 10 over 10. All of those values are still 1, so you're not changing the problem. So since we know that 3 goes into 15 5 times, we are going to multiply 1/3 by 5 over 5. And the nice thing about 4/15 is it already has the denominator that we want, so we don't have any work to do there. 5 times 1 gives us 5. 3 times 5 gives us 15. And so now we have the statement 5/15 plus 4/15. Now it kind of looks like number 1, where we have the same denominators. So 5 plus 4 gives us 9, and then we keep 15. And then we need to check to see if we can simplify it. And this one's actually not done because it has a 3 in the top and a 3 in the bottom. So if we divide the top and bottom by 3, we are going to get 3/5. And at this point, it is fully simplified. Okay, so let's take a look at mixed numbers. When you're working with mixed numbers, you have choices. You can either make it into improper fractions and work it that way, or you can leave the mixed numbers and work with them the way they are. Personally, I tend to work with mixed numbers the way they are because sometimes the numbers get really, really, really big when you're having to convert them into improper fractions and then common denominators. But either one is completely fine. So taking a look at number 3, we know that our denominators are not the same. So to get 4 up to an 8, we're going to multiply by 2 over 2, and we're going to keep this a 3/8. I think it's really important to keep this 1 right there, because otherwise sometimes we have a tendency to forget that the 1 is there in the first place. So we have 1 times 2 gives us 2, and 4 times 2 gives us 8, and then we have 2 and 3/8. Now that the denominators are the same, we can go ahead and regroup. So we're going to group the whole numbers together. So 1 plus 2 gives us 3, and then 2/8 plus 3/8 gives us 5/8. Because the only number going into 5 and 8 are both 1, we know that it is completely simplified. Now, I will show you how to do this with improper, just in case you forgot. So to turn 1 and 1/4 into an improper fraction, we have 4 times 1, which is 4, plus 1 is 5. 8 times 2 is 16, plus 3 is 19. And so we still need our common denominator, so we're going to multiply the 5/4 multiplied by 2 over 2. 5 times 2 will give us 10. 4 times 2 gives us 8. And then we have 19 over 8. So when we add those together, we have 29 over 8. Now, technically that is a simplified improper fraction. There's nothing else we can do there. But when the problem gives you things starting in a mixed number, it is better to also have your answer in a mixed number. So 8 goes into 29 3 times, and then we have a remainder of 5 over 8. So notice that the answers are the same. Okay, now would be a great time to hit pause if you are watching this video so that you can try this one on your own. Welcome back. Let's check your work. So we know that 3 goes into 9 3 times, so we are going to multiply the top and bottom by 3. So we have 8 ninths plus 3 ninths, and we know that 8 plus 3 is 11, and that is completely done. If you would like to turn this into a mixed number, you can, and you will have 1 and 2 ninths. Let's look at a couple of subtracting problems, and then we'll be done. So, especially with subtracting, I like leaving things in mixed numbers. So 5 and 4, our common denominator will be 20. So we're going to multiply the top by 4 over 4. And we're going to multiply the 1/4 by 5 over 5. So that gives us 5 and 16 twentieths. And we are going to subtract 2 and 5 twentieths. Some students do not like to do this kind of subtraction without making it vertical. So if it makes you more comfortable to make it vertical, that's completely fine. 5 times 2 gives us 3. 5 minus 2, gives us 3. And then 16 minus 5 gives us 11. So we have 3 and 11 twentieths. So let's take a look at number 6. Common denominator here is going to be 40. So we are going to multiply this by 5 over 5. And we are going to multiply this one by 8 over 8. So we have 4 and 5 fortieths minus 2 and 16 fortieths. So if we do this vertically, we're going to run into a problem. And it's a good problem to have because this is really important. When you're subtracting, you have to be subtracting in the same order, which is going top minus bottom. So while we can do 4 minus 2, we cannot do 5 minus 16, which means we need to borrow. So to borrow, this makes this a 3, and if we're borrowing a whole, remember that the whole is 40 over 40. So this becomes 3 and 45 fortieths minus 2 and 16 fortieths. And now we can subtract in the order that we see it. So 3 minus 2 is 1, and 45 minus 16 is 29. So we know our answer is going to be 1 and 29 over 40ths. What you should be looking at also is that we're never putting an equal sign in here. And the reason we're not putting an equal sign is because they're not equations, they're expressions. So it's really important when you're doing expressions that you don't add equal signs to the problem. So this is going to be the last one. I wanted to make sure we saw one that was a whole number minus a fraction. So again, this is something that we can borrow. 22 is the same thing as having 22 and 0 4. So while we can take 22 minus 3, we cannot do 0 minus 1. So if we would borrow, this becomes a 21, and then we have 4 over 4. And then we're going to subtract 3 and 1/4. So 21 minus 3 is 18, and 4 minus 1 is 3. So we have 18 and 3/4. And that's your review of adding and subtracting fractions. Have a great day.